Let's talk about laws of exponent. The first law of exponent is zero exponent law. It states that if a raised to 0, it is equal to 1. Anong ibig sabihin? Any number except 0 raised to 0 is equal to 1. Any algebraic expression raised to 0, it is equal to 1. Example number 1. 5 raised to 0 equals 1. That will be our answer. Example number 2. The quantity of 3x raised to 0 is also 1. And that is also our final answer. And number 3, example number 3, 5x raised to 0 is 5. Bakit hindi 1? Kasi yung x lang ang naka-raise sa 0. 5x raised to 0 means 5 times x raised to 0. So that will be 5 times x raised to 0 is 1. 5 times 1 is 5. And that will be our final answer. Now, let's move to the next law of exponent. The identity exponent law. It states that if a raised to 1, it is equal to 1. Anong ibig sabihin? Any number raised to 1 is the number itself. Example number 1. 5 raised to 1 equals 5. Number 2. The quantity of 3x raised to 1 is 3x. Example number 3. The quantity of 5x squared plus 1 raised to 1 is 5x squared plus 1. Next law of exponent is the product law. It states that if a raised to m times a raised to n, it is equal to a raised to m plus n. Anong ibig sabihin? If we are multiplying two mathematical expressions with same bases, we just copy the common base and add their exponents, m plus n. Example number 1. X squared times x cubed. Multiplying x squared by x cubed. Since they have the same bases, copy the common base and add their exponents. X, 2 plus 3, 5. That will be our final answer. And example number 2. 3x squared times 5x to the 4th equals. Kapag merong mga numerical coefficients, just multiply first the numerical coefficients. 3 times 5, 15. Then x squared times x to the 4th. Since they have the same bases, copy the common base and add their exponents. 2 plus 4. Then 15x 2 plus 4 is 6. The answer will be 15x to the 6th. The next law of exponent, number 4, is the quotient law. It states that a raised to m divided by a raised to n is equal to a raised to m minus n if m is greater than n. That is the first case. The second case is if a raised to m divided by a raised to n, it is equal to 1 over a raised to n minus m if n is greater than m. Okay, mag-example tayo. Example number 1. X to the 5th divided by x squared. the numerator is greater than the denominator. So, ang gagamitin natin is m is greater than n. So, the answer will be x raised to 5 minus 2. And x, 5 minus 2 is 3. That will be our final answer. Yung isang case natin, example number 2, baliktarin natin. X squared divided by x to the 5th. In this case, the exponent of the denominator is greater than the numerator. Ito ang gagamitin natin. 1 over the common base, x, then subtract the exponent of the numerator from the exponent of the denominator. That will be 5 minus 2 equals 1 over x, 5 minus 2 is 3. That will be our final answer. Let us proceed to fifth law. The negative exponent law. It states that if a raised to negative m, then it is equal to 1 over a raised to m. Example number 1. 3 raised to negative 1. Katulad lang to ng a raised to negative m. Ibababa natin siya para maging positive exponent. Kasi expressions with negative exponent are not considered simplified. Pag positive exponent na siya, simplified na siya. So gawin natin. 1 over a raised to negative m, naging a raised to m. So 3 raised to negative 1, gagawin natin 3 raised to 1. And 1 over 3 raised to 1 is simply 3. That will be our final answer. Example number 2. X raised to negative 3 equals x raised to negative 3 is not considered in simplified form kasi negative siya. So gagawin natin positive. Gaya ng negative exponent law, a raised to m, negative m equals 1 over a raised to m. It is equal to 1 over x raised to, it will become positive, 3. That will be our final answer. And last example, kapag ang case naman ay nasa ilalim na siya, example, 1 over x raised to negative 2. Kung nasa ilalim siya, itataas lang natin to make it a positive exponent. X raised to the second power. This is our final answer. Paano nangyari to? Sige, simplify natin to. The numerator 1 over itong x raised to negative 2, gaya ng ginawa natin dito, gagawin natin 1 over x squared. This is a complex fraction. This is the numerator, this is the denominator. Copy the numerator times the reciprocal of the denominator, x squared over 1. X squared over 1 is simply x squared times 1 x squared. Same lang, kaso mahaba to. Para mapadali, itaas lang natin, then make the exponent positive. Let us proceed to the sixth law of exponent. Power of a power. It states that the quantity of a raised to m raised to n is equal to a raised to m times n. Pinagtatimes lang yung exponent. mn means m times n. Example number 1. X squared to the third power. Nakapower na, nakapower pa. May exponent na, may exponent pa. Anong ginagawa? Just copy the base, then multiply the exponents. 2 times 3 is x to the sixth power. That will be our final answer. Example number 2. X cubed raised to the fifth power. Parehas na parehas lang ng number 1. Copy the base, then multiply the exponents. 3 times 5 is 15. X raised to the 15th power. The next law is power of a product. It states that the quantity of AB raised to M is equal to A raised to M, B raised to M. Bakit power of a product? Because AB is a product of A times B. I-distribute natin ang exponent sa bawat factor. A raised to M and B raised to M. Example number 1. XY raised to the second power. XY is a product of X times Y. I-distribute natin yung exponent na 2 sa bawat factor na X at Y. That will be X squared, Y squared. That will be our final answer. Example number 2. 3x squared Y raised to the third power. 3x squared Y is the product of 3 times x squared times y. So, bawat isa sa tatlong ito, i-raise mo sa third power. Let us start with 3. 3 raised to the third power. Times x squared raised to the third power. And y raised to the third power. Then simplify. 3 cubed means 3 times 3 times 3. And that is 27. And the quantity of x squared to the third power, sabi natin kanina, power of a power, i-multiply lang natin ng exponents. 2 times 3, 6. That will be x to the 6th power. Then copy y cubed. That will be our final answer. And last law of exponent is power of a quotient. It states that the quantity of A over B raised to M is equal to A raised to M over B raised to M. Parang yung kanina lang sa power of a product, i-distribute lang natin yung exponent sa bawat numerator and denominator. Example number 1. The quantity of x over y to the second power. I-distribute natin yung exponent na to sa numerator and denominator. That will be x squared over y squared. That will be our final answer. Example number 2. X squared over 5 to the third power. Distribute ulit natin yung 3 sa numerator and sa denominator. X squared to the third power over 5 to the third power equals, again, nakita na natin kanina to, minumultiply lang natin yung exponents. X, 2 times 3, 6 over 5 cubed means 5 times 5 times 5. So, x to the 6th over 5 times 5 is 25 times 5 is 125. That will be our final answer.